Well, good evening, everyone. I am Ginny Ballou. I am the Western Regional Director for the National Federation of Democratic Women. And this is my first time getting to moderate for the National Infrastructure Bank. We want to make sure we can hit the ground running for 2026 and have both Randy all ready to do calls, and I could be doing them at another time. We just have to find a way to clone Alfeca and the PowerPoint. So be watching for that. We are going to be going through tonight. We're going to be looking at the infrastructure spending on life support and the National Infrastructure Bank to the rescue. So if that's what you're here for, that's what you're going to be hearing. We are so excited to have all of you with us, and you're going to be hearing from some incredible speakers throughout our time together. And we'll get a chance to really hear from some of the other people on our call that have places either in the economy or in infrastructure or in crucial issues that all of these things are addressed by the NIB. So we are going to start off with Alfeca McTardy letting us have a nice, quick, brief PowerPoint on the ins and outs of how this works. Alfeca?
Great. Thank you very much, and welcome to everybody. It's great to see familiar faces and new faces as well. So my PowerPoint is not sharing. So I just want to give you a real quick introduction on where we are with the bill, where we are with infrastructure financing, and maybe a little bit on the economy and how the National Infrastructure Bank is so timely right now. So our bill in Congress, which was reintroduced, as many of you know, in mid-September, has had a lot of momentum coming out of the gate. We now have almost 50 co-sponsors on the bill. That's 1/4 of the Democrats in the House. We want your help to get the other 3/4 of the Democrats in the House. And really, time is of the essence for this because our infrastructure is crumbling and our economy is crumbling. And this is really an opportune moment. And just to let you know, many of your members of Congress are home for the holidays right now. So you can find them. Either Stu always mentions find them at the grocery store or at a New Year's party or whatever. Take your flyers with you so that you can buttonhole them and pester them about signing on to the National Infrastructure Bank Act. So I just wanted to let you know where we are in the budget to reauthorize infrastructure spending through the federal budget. We normally do this every 5 years through something called the Surface Transportation Act that sets the spending for a 5-year period. That's what the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee, and we're calling up all of those members to talk about bipartisan infrastructure law, but they
Oh, you need to unmute, Alfec. I had to mute everybody.
Did you hear everything that I said, Angela, up until then?
Do the last sentence again.
Yeah, so I just wanted to tell you about the Surface Transportation Reauthorization for a 5-year spending plan. But the problem is that the T&I committee has 12,000 project requests for infrastructure projects. That just goes to show you what the backlog is. They want to try and sort all of that. But the big bottom line is that our infrastructure spending from the federal government is going down and down and down. This is a plot of transportation, highway, and mass transit spending from the budget as a percent of GDP. You can see the big highway building thrust in the 1960s, and then it's been down below average ever since then, even with the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. So that Bipartisan Infrastructure Law was the last spending plan we had. It was $1.2 trillion over 5 years. They're only going to reauthorize the surface transportation part, the 650 billion, and they might reduce it to 500 billion. They're going to throw out transit spending. They're going to throw out anything having to do with electricity, whatever. So it's going to get smaller in the budget, and the budget is broke. The Highway Trust Fund, which is supposed to fund all of this, doesn't have enough money. 20% of the spending for highways comes out of the general fund, and that's going to hit a restraint. And we also have a big, huge deficit problem with our deficits. And meanwhile, the amount of money that we needed that's not covered by the federal budget, according to the American Society of Civil Engineers, is a gap of 1.2 trillion for transportation. So the National Infrastructure Bank will cover all of that. My slides are not going. And the economy is not doing well either. We've got a K-shaped economy where the rich are spending, and that's pushing up, however quality, we're not sure about the GDP growth number. The statistics after the government shutdown are really bad, both on GDP measure and on inflation. But what we know for sure is that there are big problems with the lower 50% of income earners. Credit scores are worsening. Auto loans and rents are going into default. People are suffering from higher healthcare costs, and job creation is sagging. So altogether, the economy is in difficulty, and we have a huge income inequality problem. And that covers a lot of, that explains a lot of our woes in our economy, because it drives poverty, it drives climate breakdown, white collar crime is going up, it undermines democracy, a whole lot of things are coming along. And then we have a banking crisis and a governing crisis. So all of these things need to be redressed. A national infrastructure bank will really help. It'll create 20 million great paying families sustaining wage jobs, which will raise incomes, and it will lower the biggest expense in everybody's wallet, which is their housing costs, because it'll build more affordable housing. So it's really, time is of the essence. 2026 could be a real big turning point for this bill. We encourage all of you to get out there and call your members of Congress and tell them to sign on to HR 5356 to get the National Infrastructure Bank bill passed. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Alfecca. And I, forgot to mention that she's a professional macroeconomist, former senior economist, International Monetary Fund, chief econ. She knows where she's coming from in this information. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Randy will be doing our next introduction. Thanks so much.
This is a video from our congressman.
Thank you for holding this meeting on the National Infrastructure Bank, and thank you to my colleague, Congressman Danny Davis, for his outstanding leadership on H.R. 5356. In 2021, I was proud to help pass the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, an historic $550 billion worth of down payment on long overdue repairs and upgrades. It was an incredible start, but it wasn't enough, and it expires next year. That's why a national infrastructure bank makes so much sense. It would build upon what we've already done, stretch federal dollars further, and help close the gap between needs and resources. Those needs are enormous. Bridges, roads, water systems, schools, housing, rail. Even with recent investments, hundreds of billions and in some cases trillions of dollars in work remain. In my home state of New York, the challenges are overwhelming. 1/2 of our roads need repair, and 1 in 10 bridges is in poor condition. The New York-New Jersey Port Authority faces a $20 billion shortfall for critical wharf replacements. Amtrak's Northeast Corridor alone has a $38 billion maintenance backlog. Drinking water and wastewater systems need more than $80 billion in upgrades, including replacing lead service lines. And we urgently need hundreds of thousands of truly affordable housing units. The National Infrastructure Bank could help us meet these needs right now. And I am proud to support this effort and thank you all for your work. Together, we truly can build up our nation.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us there, Randy, and to the congressman for that. Couldn't agree more. We need to get on this. Next up, we've got Councilwoman Walla Blagay that's got a time constraint, so we want to make sure we honor that.
Yes, hello.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I want to thank you all so much for this opportunity. This is such a great opportunity in Prince George's County. I just want to note for Prince George's County, the amount that we're looking at for, we just spent over close to $1 billion on infrastructure for our schools. And one of the reasons why our schools are backed up and upgrades at this point, we actually had to do a P3. And so that adds on additional monies that we have to pay every year. That the county has to do every year in our budget. And we're facing a budget deficit, a $200 million budget deficit that we're going into 2026. And it doesn't even include the cuts that we're seeing with the Trump administration. And so for us and for Prince George's County, with all of the infrastructure that we are looking at, especially road infrastructure, we are actually really strapped. In the state, as you all see, there was $1 billion deficit for the state of Maryland. So I would say that we are very supportive of this initiative. We are working on putting this forth. A resolution from the council at the council, and we will start our council session in January, and we will be putting this bill forward, this resolution forward, and we do expect our colleagues to support it. I will say that I do appreciate you all for coming out, because one thing we've learned is that, sometimes it takes people to come up with new ideas that you hadn't thought of. And for us, we have been looking for a alternative. With most of about, I think the list that they gave us, at least 50% of the school buildings in Prince George's County are really are in bad need of upgrades, and some are so still, at the top. That's why we created the P3, which of course is another add of cost on the county itself, and that doesn't even include the park and planning facility upgrades that we do, all of the park and planning facility, all of the county facilities. And the biggest thing for Prince George's County is roads. So if you, those of you on here from the state of Maryland, the state of Maryland also took some of the projects off the state list for priority because of the lack of funding. So for us, we do need a option. It's an alternative. And this effort will help us, will at least help us get it there. So I will be talking to my colleagues about it. We're going to pull it around, and even once we pass the resolution at the council level, we definitely are going to talk to Mako and some of the other counties in Maryland to get them to support it too, and then reach out to our federal delegation. And for Prince George's County, that will be Congressman Steny Hoyer and Congressman Ivey. And for the federal level, we will be meeting with the Senator Angela Alsop-Brooks and Senator Van Hollen. But we definitely need it right now. And the biggest issue we have is our budget cannot take the infrastructure needed. We have almost 1 million people with a $5 billion budget. If you look at Montgomery County, our neighboring county, they have an $8 billion budget, and they're a little over 1 million people. And if you even look at DC, they have a $20 billion budget. And I'm not sure of the cuts with under the Trump administration, but the reality is that, as you can see, we're strapped when it comes to money, and our state is not able to jump in and assist us due to the deficit that they're facing at the state level and the cuts that we're bracing ourselves from the Trump administration. So we look forward. We will be introducing the resolution in January, and we look forward to having all of you come to the hearing to support it.
Thank you so very much. Wow. You hit all the things why we're here, right? Why we need to be here. And I am shirking at this. I have to get this in the right order. Walla is an at-large member of the Prince George's Council, County Council in Maryland. She's a passionate advocate for civil rights, women's rights, and workers' rights, a grassroots organizer, committed her office to the betterment of all stakeholders, an adjunct professor at the American University, Washington College of Law, and former staff attorney for the DC Nurses Association. Council member Bigley has been noted as the working people's voice and lives in Kettering, Maryland. So again, thank you so much for joining us and giving your wisdom and dedication. We're here to support what you're trying to do. So thank you so much. Next, we're going to hear from Assemblywoman Mary Jane Shimsky. Mary Jane is in my old neighborhood. I'm a born and raised New Yorker, and I think you're about 4 stops away from Croton-on-Hudson and Dobbs Ferry, if I'm correct. 92nd New York Assembly District 92, her first term, Mary Jane in her first term, she helped secure $100 million in additional road and bridge funding in the state budget. 12-year Westchester County legislator, she was responsible for advancing hundreds of construction projects for roads, sewers, parks, and other public facilities. A native of Scranton, Pennsylvania, Mary Jane graduated from Yale University, New York University School of Law, and earned a PhD in history from the City University of New York. So thank you so much for joining us, Mary Jane.
Thank you so much, Ginny. Stuart asked me to do something a little different tonight. He asked me to see if I could put some of this into historical perspective. Looking at his notes and just thinking about the way the world is operating, the parallels with the Great Depression and the New Deal are incredibly striking, not just in the big picture ones that most of us see, but also in the little details. The New Deal, as I think you all know, was a response to the Great Depression. The Great Depression was the culmination of economic dislocations due to the rise of heavy industry in this country, which displaced so many different sectors of the economy, changed the economic rules. In agriculture, for example, created lots of economic problems for farmers. And that was just one sector of the economy. You also had corporate greed, which resulted in the large majority of people who were working for a living not being able to make enough money to afford the great new inventions that were coming along in the early 20th century. And the Gilded Age and the 1920s were both periods of great worsening of the male distribution of wealth. Everything kept pushing up, pushing up, pushing up, which resulted in the stock bubble, which resulted in the stock market crash and that aftermath, which is what so many people learned was the beginning of the Great Depression, but that was only one piece of a much larger web of economic dislocations. At that point, there were a lot of new innovations, a lot of new infrastructure out there. Electricity was starting to go online everywhere. Indoor plumbing was starting to go online. But these improvements were still very uneven. In the early 1930s, I think it's fair to say that most households either had no electricity at all, or they had a very small amount of it, enough to have electric lights, but not enough to heat their water or wash their clothes or so on. Transportation was still a problem. There were a lot of areas in this country which needed an improved road system. Our increase in commercial agriculture and our desire to move out and spread across the country required new water projects as well. So the response to help get us out of the Great Depression, help allow people to be able to afford to eat and feed their families, there was all kinds of federal programs, the alphabet soup of the New Deal as we were all taught it. For example, the Public Works Administration, which was a Herbert Hoover program designed to loan to banks. They were the lender of last resort to banks that were going under. But the New Deal transformed the Public Works Administration into something that also funded some of the biggest infrastructure projects in American history. The Works Project Administration, which we all know of as funding artists, playwrights, musicians, and so on, also funded smaller scale projects like local roads. But none of that was enough to meet the need at the time. So the part of the New Deal programs was the Reconstruction Finance Corporation. This was the one that was the lender of last resort to banks under Hoover. The New Deal took it, broadened it, and the thing that made this better was folks were really concerned about all the deficit spending that was going on to get us out of the New Deal. Even people who understood Keynesian economics understood what a big experiment that was and were concerned. So this provided a new funding stream. It was done by Treasury bonds, and it was run like a bank. So as people paid off their loans, more was able to go out for more projects. And combined with the federal appropriations agencies, the Reconstruction Finance Corporation did so much to bring all of the country into the second half of the 20th century. So let's compare this to where we are today. We are in the middle of a huge affordability crisis. I think any of us who have adult children or adult nieces or nephews that we're close to know how bad this is. Our kids can't afford houses. They're not going to be able to build wealth the way our generations did. So we have the problem of maldistribution of wealth, which has only gotten worse with the tech bros. And in the meantime, we do have all this new technology that's out there. We still haven't absorbed all the economic dislocation from the internet and computerization. And now we're having to deal with AI too. So we are dealing with an analogous perfect storm of crises that we were experiencing in the early decades of the 1900s. And when it comes to infrastructure, number one, to keep up with all the new demands, we're going to need new electricity. We're going to need better connectivity to the internet and other forms of digital facilities. We also have to deal with climate change, which is in part the result of all those cars that went on all those highways we built in the 1930s, but I digress. We also need climate resilience.
Yes.
Because we're already suffering from the effects of climate change, and making sure that our roads that get washed out, for example, can be rebuilt in a way that they either won't get washed out again or will survive being washed out again is very expensive, especially when we start talking about buildings and building systems, all the housing we're losing due to flooding and all the businesses and so on. And to bring us out into that great sunny future, we are going to need massive investments in renewable energy. Now, when we look at what the federal government has been able to do, if you look at what the Biden administration did with their programs, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, as well as the, what was the second one called? I can't remember.
Oh, Mary Jane, we're gonna have to wrap up your.
Okay.
I've got a couple with tight time frames, so I appreciate it.
There was a lot there, a lot of investment, which the Trump administration is in part trying to claw back on. And it still wasn't enough to deal with everything, which means we need another Reconstruction Finance Corporation. And that is what the National Infrastructure Bank is all about. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. I'm sorry to rush you. Just want to make sure we get all of our people in. And it is such important information of how did we get here and how have we gotten out of it before. So let's do it again. So then we're going to go to Maryland Delegate Chao Wu, member of the Maryland House of Delegates. Born in China, emigrated into the U.S., received a Master of Engineering from the University of Maryland, College Park, UMD, PhD, Electrical and Computer Engineering. He served on the Howard County Board of Education prior to the legislature. He's a member of the Ways and Means Committee and has been the House Chair of the Howard County Delegation. He is the Treasurer, Maryland Legislative Asian American and Pacific Islander Caucus, and lives in Columbia, Maryland. Thank you so much, Delegate Chao Wu, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Jeannie. So I really feel honored to join this meeting with so many similar-minded people, legislators, stakeholders coming tonight and talk about the importance of a national infrastructure bank. I think when we always come back to think about the challenge we're facing, even from local level to the state level or to the federal level, right? We know there's so many challenges we're facing. I still remember when I first joined our school board, we feel why there's so many really old buildings still there without money to fix them. Like 50 years old, 70 years old school building, still try to do Band-Aid fix. And we know at the same time, our county, Howard County, Maryland, is top 10, top 20 wealthy county in this country. So I was thinking that if we couldn't do it, I'm thinking about many other counties or cities or states have bigger problems we're facing. So 3 years ago, I joined Maryland General Assembly in the Ways and Means Committee. I was seeing there's so many other challenges really happening every day. Every year we come to the budget and we're figured out what's going on, why we're not able to fix the road. So eventually, for example, whenever we try to balance our budget, and then last year we raised a lot of fees in order to fix a lot of roads we're having, right? And then, citizens are really not happy. And we don't like that either as well. But we have the balanced budget, we have to fix the road. We need the money to do it, right? So I think the NIB really created a new vehicle for all of us, like sitting here, to say, what can we do differently? We know if we look at all over the world, many other countries have different ways to really fund their infrastructure. I will always highlight what China is doing because I know what they're doing based on because I grew up there. Right? I see, for example, the Asian Development Infrastructure Bank that has been built a lot of infrastructures all over the world. And I happen to know somebody from Africa, some people from Southeast Asia. They talk about the shiny new building, the bridges, stadium funded by this AIIB. And, that's the influence. And the Asian Infrastructure Development Bank has created and really created something people can see, visible, tangible. And I would see this NIB will be a vehicle for us, and we can showcase to our constituents, right? We are doing something, and that is something it's really related to your life. We are going to have better infrastructure, better road, safer bridge, safer dams. There's so many things we need to do, and something really related to their life. For example, better school infrastructure. And Maryland is very in need of that funding to go over those challenges. So last year, I was a co-sponsor for this bill to create a resolution in General Assembly. So this year, I'm going to be the leading sponsor. So I'm looking forward. So Maryland will go into pass this resolution to really show off the support. I believe the Maryland delegation will have a strong support for this bill. I have no doubt of that. I think all our federal delegation, they see the importance of this bill, and we're going to see the transformative impact from this bill once it's passed.
Thank you so very much, Delegate Wu. I really do appreciate that. We are seeing this need all over. We can see with just our own eyes from what we're doing here in this country, what other countries are doing in their infrastructure, their train stations, their airports, and we can see the crumbling state that we just don't have the money to barely even Band-Aid things together. So I so appreciate your support and continuing to get us passed by more and more groups. I am definitely a very proud Democrat, and the coalition is nonpartisan. We've been trying to get Republicans to sign on, so far not doing that. But many of us in the Democratic Party that have been part of this have thought it should almost be a requirement like the platform. If you are running, you should be supporting the NIB because Democrats can get the country back to work and get things fixed. So that's what we believe on that. I'm sorry, we will jump right over then to Representative Kathleen Cates. I'm sorry, didn't see that. Representative Cates represents Albuquerque in the New Mexico House of Representatives. Previously, she was the CEO of two nonprofits and volunteered as a member of the New Mexico Developmental Disabilities Council. In the 2025 legislative session, Representative Cates served as vice chair on the Agriculture and Water Resources Committee, as well as a member on the Health and Human Services Committee. She resides in Rio Rancho. And Representative Kathleen Cates, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you for this forum. I'm Representative Kathleen Cates. Just because there's about a third of the country who doesn't understand that New Mexico is part of the country, please forgive me as I kind of catch up a little bit about how our government works here in the state. One is that we are constitutionally obligated to have a balanced budget every year. So we are only able to spend what we earn. And 25, 30 years ago, almost 100% of what we earned was through oil, gas, and timber. In the last 20 years, especially the last 15, we've really focused on diversifying that revenue stream by the movie industry, solar, wind power, cannabis, and a variety of things. And we've gotten oil and gas revenue down to about 48% of our budget. I mention that to you because we now, in the last 8 years, have been creating large trust funds that the interest rate can stabilize our budget so we are not in such an ebb and flow, which is what we've been for 60 years, 70 years in our budget, which makes it very difficult to invest in infrastructure or even stabilize our budget. So in the last year, we have changed how we are approaching our budget by creating these trusts. They are by what the trust serves, either early childhood education or housing or water and so on, these trust funds. I mention this because I want to give you an idea. We only have 2.1 million people in a state that is almost 3 times the state of Ohio, which means we have a great deal of land. We have 2 of the largest border crossings for commercial goods in the country, in Columbus and Santa Teresa. The majority of goods and services that come across our southern border go through our state. And then we also have Route 66 and I-40 through our state, which connects our state. So I wanted to give you an idea of that. One of the ways that we've approached this in the last 30 years is we have a couple of entities that we call quasi-governmental. One is New Mexico Finance Authority, which provides loans for public purpose, public infrastructure. It is not the infrastructure bank that I firmly believe that we need at a national level, but it most certainly has given experience to New Mexicans and to the electeds to understand how it works and how it can self-support itself during the ebb and flow of the economy. And so I think that that is one of the reasons as well is why in New Mexico, our entire federal delegation supports this effort in HR 5356. I will say that the investments in our roads, I mean, we have 78,000 miles of road just in our state, are essential. But more importantly, right now, I really appreciate Mary Jane's history lesson earlier because we are in that new technology. As we had a revolution, an industrial revolution, we most certainly in our technology revolution, and now we're in an energy revolution. And so those transferable lines, because we have the land for wind and solar to be able to bring that energy to California or to bring it east in the Mississippi are essential. We have geothermal, We have, we said wind and solar. We also, there's technology in Texas right now, the largest environmental to turn brackish water into potable water is in El Paso. And so Israel, Saudi Arabia is coming here. But these are large public projects that need investments into them. And the National Infrastructure Bank is a perfect structure on how to be able to do that without raising taxes or taking on more debt. I want to also talk to all of our colleagues. I believe this should be a nonpartisan issue, as in I can't think of a better job creator. I mean, not just in labor, but engineers and scientists, surveyors, geologists, sales, administration. It is all very essential that would help spark the economy and invest in more of these things that are really not by state, but cross each other's borders, which is water and energy and roads. You cannot develop an economy if you can't get products from A to B. And so A to B, we need rail, we need roads. And so I firmly stand in support of this effort, and I hope to be able to continue to talk across the aisle and even to our independents to understand that an investment in this kind of endeavor is an investment in everybody in our economy, which is our country. And it shouldn't be segregated to only a certain section or a certain party of the party. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so very much. It really is true. This needs to be nonpartisan. This needs to be everyone. Grew up in New York, but I've lived almost 50 years out here in Idaho, incredibly rural. Not only do the goods need to get there, but the people need to be able to get out of the rural areas to get the jobs and get the education. So it all kind of goes. And from water up here, we used to visit a lot in Arizona. My in-laws were still living down there. And my husband would always say, I'm not going to move because water's the next gold and I want to be at the top of the food chain. So NIB hits all of those water needs that so many of our lower southern states need so badly. So thank you so much for your time and your service. Next, we're going to be hearing from Justin Shore. Justin is president of the Clearwater, Kansas City Council, a computer engineer with over 30 years experience in the industry. He also comes from a long line of Kansas farmers. He was elected to serve on the Sedgwick County Extension Office Program Development Committee for Family and Consumer Sciences. He was elected to serve on the Extension Council as well as the Foundation Board, overseeing all Extension Office committees from 4-H to agriculture, aging and Medicare to community vitality. Statewide leader of the Democratic municipal offices. We are so pleased to have you on our call.
Well, good evening. I'm happy to be here. I'll just touch on a few things because really Kansas has the same issues as everybody else, with the exception possibly of age. Mary Jane Shimsky did a great job of covering the history of the early 1900s and the struggles of growth and rural inequality. She did a splendid job with that, so I'll just touch on the Kansas items. Let me just say that our issues here in Kansas really predate some other states simply because our infrastructure went in as part of the New Deal. It wasn't World War II investment that really built our infrastructure. It predates that. We still have an abundance of lead pipes. We have an abundance of wood pipes. How many states do you know still have wooden pipes? Wichita had a major water main break 2-3 years ago, and it was a 3-foot pipe that was made out of wood that served the entire city. They had a residential one dug up recently where they hollowed out a tree trunk to make the pipe serving the house. It's unbelievable the age of some of what we have here. The New Deal really made Kansas prosper. It brought our rural electrification to the farms that had fewer than 10% of the farms served with electric service. The Communications Act of 34 brought phone lines to rural areas that never had them before. It really helped modernize Kansas but we are starting to regress. We're not investing in our infrastructure because we can't afford it. People are moving out of the rural areas into our urban areas faster than you would believe. Faster than, frankly, white flight is causing people to move out of the urban core out to the edges. They're moving to the cities at an incredible rate. And our counties, the ones that technically qualify as frontier, which means fewer than 6 people per, 20 square miles, our number of frontier counties grow every few years. We're losing the rural area of Kansas as people move further and further inland. And our biggest industry here in Kansas is agriculture. The second biggest in Kansas is aircraft, which is really what props up most of our economy here. So my viewpoint really comes from municipalities and from the rural needs. Most of our 600 cities in Kansas have sewer lagoons. We don't have the majority of them having mechanical treatment facilities. Most of them are open air lagoons, and hopefully they have progressed under recent investments under the Biden administration towards non-discharge, hopefully. If they haven't, then we're going to be in sorry states. We're progressing as quickly as we can, but it's money. We don't have forward-thinking people here in Kansas, except for maybe Coke here headquartered in Wichita, thinking about their pocketbooks. They're not so much thinking about rural investment. Agriculture areas depend upon the investment, and you don't think about the weight of a combine at 60,000 pounds until you drive one over a wooden bridge, and you have to wonder, is it going to hold? We're not talking interstates. We're talking rural areas of Kansas that it's a county-maintained highway that they can't afford to replace some of the 5,000 deficient bridges we have here in Kansas. That's the kind of infrastructure that these true Midwestern rural areas need investments in. And that's where the NIB really will shine if we can get back to that. It worked before, it'll work again. We just need people to sign on and make it happen.
Thank you so very much, Councilman Short. Is that not the truth? I'll tell you, here in Idaho, my sister in the rural area had her sewer pipe showing up grass. When they snaked it, they found that they'd originally used a septic holding tank of a Model T and put the pipe into a window and rolled up all the windows. And when the city came through in the early 60s and put in a sewer, they just put the pipe on the roof. And so 40 years later, 30 years later, it rusted out and broke the pipe. And that's how they found, and all they did was backfill the thing in. So, it's kind of crazy there. And we have also many of our roads being used by, if the interstate is going to have a weigh station, well, there's a state road that we can use to bypass that, and we'll bring our heavy loads across on Highway 12 in northern Idaho, all across the northern states, and just destroy those roads, and then we'll just go to litigation, so why don't we just fix them? Fund it and fix it would be so much simpler. So we really appreciate having common sense in those leadership roles. We're next going to be hearing from Zvonko Blazeski. Excuse me if I butchered your name. I hope I'm somewhat close. Zvonko has been a legislative staff member of the Michigan Legislature for 12 years, currently serves as legislative director for Representative Donovan McKinney of Detroit. Zvonko authored H.R. 216, the resolution in the Michigan House in support of H.R. 5356 in Congress. He received his BA from Oakland University and a master's degree in political science and international relations from Wayne State University. He was a presenter at the International Studies Association Conference in Montreal, Determinants of a Durable Peace in a Post-Civil War Societies, and lives in Roswell, Michigan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for giving me the opportunity to speak about Rep. McKinney's legislative efforts to basically promote National Infrastructure Bank and to kind of push Congress to act on this important legislation. My name is, as indicated earlier, my name is Zvonko Blazeski. I am the legislative director for State Rep. Donovan McKinney, who represents the 11th House District, which is one of the poorest legislative districts in the state of Michigan. If enacted by Congress, the NIB will invest $5 trillion in much-needed and urgent infrastructure projects nationwide, while not requiring any new federal spending or federal taxes. This benefits Michigan because we could receive up to $130 billion in much needed infrastructure project funding from Michigan. The need in Michigan and our country is obvious. In Michigan, we still have wooden pipes in Detroit and in the Upper Peninsula. We still have lead pipes in Michigan, even after the Michigan legislature has appropriated over $100 million over the last decade since the Flint water crisis. Michigan ranks as one of the least reliable energy grids in our nation. Michigan also has over 60 Superfund sites that need to be cleaned. Yet, we do not have the funding to do much of this. Across Michigan, our communities are facing aging roads, bridges, water systems, transit networks that are insufficient, and energy infrastructure that is long overdue for investment. The National Infrastructure Bank would provide a stable, long-term financing tool to support large-scale transformative projects that state and local governments cannot fund alone. By leveraging public investment with private capital, this model promotes efficiency, accountability, and job creation by reducing the burden on taxpayers. Earlier this year, we had a compromise in Michigan between Governor Whitmer, legislative Republicans, and Democrats funding. If anyone on this call has driven through Michigan, you will understand how bad the roads are here in Michigan. There are two seasons in Michigan, winter and road construction season. But this compromise required some very difficult and painful decisions, some of which were politically difficult for many and were also unnecessary. These decisions included a 24% tax on top of what Michigan already charges on a cannabis industry that is already struggling in an oversaturated, overtaxed market. Significant cuts to the state budget, including to many earmarked projects that went to several infrastructure projects in legislators' local communities. It also required us to shift general funding to cover the deficits, the school aid fund, as well as what our local governments will be getting as a result of finding the funding to fund our roads. This comes on top of what the current presidential administration has done by cutting grant funding and appropriations to our state as well as everyone else in our country, which only increases the financial burden of states to fund things like Medicaid in the future. Michigan is at the edge of a state budget crisis. If we had an NIB, we never would have had to raise taxes on taxes or to cut important projects to fund our basic roads and infrastructure needs, which are still will not be met. On November 12th, Representative Donovan McKinney introduced House Resolution 216 in the Michigan House of Representatives. This resolution was based on similar language we used from last term for our House Resolution 167. This term, despite, the difficult political times, we were able to get 19 legislators, almost 35% of the Democratic caucus, to co-sponsor our resolution urging their support for the NIB. This includes a broad range of Democrats signing on, which including more moderate Democrats as well as more progressive ones. Last term, we were also successful in working with NIB coalition members on this call to reach out to our congressional delegation to add them to the co-sponsorship list for the federal legislation. We talked about the need. We talked about how important it is to fund these important projects to not only create jobs here in Michigan and throughout the country, but also to ensure that everyone in our state and country has clean water, efficient transit, housing, and so many of the basic things that many of us take for granted. We have made great progress but we still have much more to do. Our office and Representative McKinney will keep up the good fight to raise this issue in Michigan and raise awareness. And I hope that each and every one of you will do more on your end as well to push the edge, to convince your neighbor, to convince family members that we need this because it's that important. My wife and I are about to have our first child. And to see the state of our state, of how kids are drinking polluted water, in living in environments that are environmental sacrifice zones, it pains me. This is America. We are supposed to be better than that. And I think this innovative way that has been tried in the past is part of that solution to make us better. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. And, I appreciate everything and want to wish everyone a happy new year. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are going to be able to go back. We've got Senator Catherine Ingram will be on the phone. Senator Ingram currently represents Ohio's 9th Senate District in Cincinnati, Ohio. She previously served 3 terms in the Ohio House representing the 32nd House District. Senator Ingram was a member of the Cincinnati Board of Education for over 20 years, serving as president and vice president. She served as Finance Committee Chair in the Ohio House. Ingram currently serves as the ranking member on the Senate Primary and Secondary Education, Workforce and Higher Education, and Medicaid committees. Senator Ingram, thank you so much for joining us.
You're quite welcome. Let me apologize for the difficulty I'm having here, but unfortunately I am at another event, and I promised you that I would step out and at least say something about the work that we need to get done regarding the infrastructure bank. So that's more important. So I'm stepping out for just a minute, but thank you for having me.
Do you want to make just a comment about your resolution, and then they'll keep going?
Definitely. The resolution, of course, we've had it a couple of times. If you remember, Representative Lisa Sobecki from our Toledo area had put that there, and I joint sponsored that with her. So here again we are now putting that back out. We asked for co-sponsors as of last Monday, and we have quite a few. I don't have many of my Republican friends yet, but hopefully we'll get them to understand that this is a way for us to keep people working for sure. And so when we are talking about workforce development and all of that, economics, jobs, and things of that nature, this is what this is about, really. So that's the important piece of that, and I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page as to where we're going with this. Unfortunately, it's more of a party. Fortunately and unfortunately, it's more of a party. So I'm going to step back in because I had to go outside. So thanks, you guys. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for making the time for us. So we may go to our Q&A. If someone's got a question or something that's working in your community, or a way that we can get more people to sponsor that you'd like to share with the rest of us, you can give it a little hand raise there. I see Walt. You'd have to unmute, Walt.
Oh, okay, great.
There you go.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you, and such a surprise to see a good turnout on a party evening, I just want to let everybody know that there is a really valuable opportunity to get more in touch with how this banking business works. When you look at the complaints or the problems that we heard from Kansas and New Mexico and others, there is a bank like the National Infrastructure Bank, the only public bank in America, the Bank of North Dakota, which has provided the money for the people there and the farmers there to get through the difficulties of being farmers in rural areas where the ability to have capital available is really limited. And I think what we touched on tonight in the really colossal failure of our nation's economy and system to serve the people is that we have to do something about our current banking relationships. Right now, capital is controlled by private parties, the Wall Street crowd. And the Wall Street crowd, of course, wants to get into the infrastructure game as well, which we cannot afford. No way we can borrow enough money to do the work that we all know needs to be done. So we need to have our own bank. No one said we can't have a bank. And then, so it's time now for the people to have their own banks, not just at the national level, but locally as well. States and cities and counties all are not broke. We all have equity and assets that we could monetize only if we had a bank. So so that's something I just want to bring to everybody's attention, that there's a unique opportunity this coming Thursday. The president of the Bank of North Dakota, Don Morgan, is going to be speaking to New Mexico, to the Alliance for Local Economic Prosperity, which the Public Banking Institute, our group, is co-sponsoring, to talk about how the Bank of North Dakota works. And there will be legislators there and so forth. I'm hoping Representative Cates will also be one of them. I have a link I'd like to put into the chat, but it's not working apparently. The chat isn't available, but it's on at 9 o'clock Eastern Mountain. I'm sorry, 9 o'clock Mountain Time, 11 Eastern at 9 o'clock to listen to Don Morgan. And I hope you guys will take a chance to check that out. But also, let's all align around the idea that all of our intention to serve the public, to serve each other, to build a future will depend on us having the money to do it, and that we can create our own credit. Okay? God bless.
Appreciate that,
Happy
Walt.
New Year, y'all.
Thank you so much. Joe Polito, I see you've got a hand raised there. Did you have something you wanted to share with us?
I do. I just wanted to say that one of the tactics that I use to try to spread this kind of progressive word is to join a political district executive and then take on a job that nobody wants and that the elected representative is really happy to have done. And then you have that person's ear. And currently I've been doing that with my Canadian federal representative, and he's a member of the governing party. And he was on the Federal Finance Committee. And I showed him a video of Elfeka doing a presentation for a monetary reform group. And I showed him a quick video of Steve Fenberg reviewing the Reconstruction Finance Corporation. And those approaches are very consistent with much of what the new prime minister is trying to do in Canada, and to use an infrastructure bank, not to the scale that I would like to see. Anyways, after seeing the videos, he would like to. Fecca and I are trying to arrange a meeting with him, and hopefully your influence will be international. But I would recommend folks, if you're trying to spread the word, get involved with some electric districts and do something that nobody else wants, and you'll have the ear of the elected representative.
Thank you so much for that, Joe. Yeah, we want this nationwide world, we want things that work to be everywhere, right? I see that Representative Kathleen Gates has something else to share with us. I do want to encourage Esme Cole, my Vermont state rep. I see that you're on. Also my stomping grounds, born and raised in New York, school in Vermont, moved to Idaho. So, and then kids spread across the country. So be thinking of something, because I know you have something to share with us. But Representative Kathleen Gates, you had something?
I have a couple of things. One is Walt McGree, you told me 9 p.m. Mountain Time, but not a date. When is that Zoom event?
Walt, do you have a date for us?
It's January 8th, I believe. January 8th.
Yeah, it's Thursday, January 8th at 9 a.m.
I'm sorry, Representative Gates, did I cut you off on?
Yeah, there was just a couple of things besides asking for the event. I wanted to mention that I've been talking to our State Bankers Association some talking points that I think that we need to make sure that they're part of the conversation is that with the National Infrastructure Bank in place and being able to provide lending opportunities for those deep infrastructure, it will actually develop land to be more commercially viable for that private sector banker. Those investments commercially should be more viable and more lucrative because of the infrastructure. And so instead of looking as a competition, they might be able to see it that it will actually enhance their investment. And then another thing that maybe we want to keep for a future topic is the Western states all have a anti-donation clause usually in their state constitution that has been amended 150 times because it was around during the robber barons with the railroads, and we do too. And it prevents states from giving government money. It was to prevent funding the railroads, but it is one of the naysayers will push back on it, and being able to formulate the argument or the talking points to address that this is actually for public purpose, it's not for an individual, and that the anti-donation should not be a hindrance.
Right.
And so I just wanted to bring those two additional talking points. Thank
Oh,
you.
I so appreciate that. Thank you. Randy, we're going to go to you, and then I think Esme might have something to share with us as well.
Sure. I just wanted to mention that something I found that's effective is when an elected has a forum that has an option of asking questions, this is an excellent thing to bring up. I've done it at political meetings as well as fundraisers. Fundraisers are kind of funny because they will actually they generally will respond, and if the question is framed as this solves many of the problems you're worried about, they have a hard time saying no. So please try that.
Oh, I appreciate that. Hey, and if you're not speaking, if you could mute, please, so that we don't get too much feedback, that would be great. Representative Cole, did you have something for us?
Well, I'm just excited about this resolution, and I plan on putting in one in Vermont. So that should be exciting.
Well, if you need any assistance with that, as you can tell, we've been passing these all over. I know when I needed one for the Idaho Democratic Party, boy, I had one within moments sent over to me, both resolutions as well. So anything anyone is needing for that, as you can tell, this group is willing to get together even on the 30th of December in the evening. So if you've got an angle to a representative or someone in the House that you think is just prime for a little quick one-on-one meeting, we've got the streamlined group that we do in 15 to 20 minutes, 30 max if needed. We would love to get everyone signed on that we possibly can. So you just let us know, and I can guarantee you Stu and Angela will get that set up. Councilman Shore, you had something you wanted to add?
I wanted to ask, and this probably has been thought of before, but we're getting ready to enter the political silly season, as if it really ever stops anymore. Have we ever considered the possibility of sending out candidate questionnaires and putting them on the record as candidates early in the process? Would you support such a thing? I ran for the Kansas House last year. I think I had 4 dozen questionnaires that I filled out in little old Kansas.
Well, I love that. I'll have those more knowledgeable than me speak to that. Carolyn Fowler and I both agree that this should be a requirement for any Democratic candidate to say, I am in full support of the infrastructure bank, the National Infrastructure Bank. Delegate Wu, did you have an answer to those things?
Sorry, I didn't catch it. I got like a multitasking. So can you ask question again?
Yeah, he
Where
didn't
did we
hear the
Just ask
question.
him to comment.
We're just looking for your comments on the process and where we are and how we can move it forward.
Oh, sure, sure. I think that the challenge is sometimes like different states operate differently, right? So in Maryland, during the last session, what we hear from leadership and some legislative body and like some legislators, it's this is something we have no control, right? So at the same time, I would say we're trying to move the needle, right? And this is a resolution we try to advocate. I think that's always my point of view. It's not to create any burden for the county or state. It's a create a tremendous opportunity for the state or the county. That's always my angle to really pitch in to anybody who have doubt.
Yes, it does seem like such a hard thing to ever say no to. Like, why would you not be in favor? Craig Schwartz, I see you've got looking to make a comment, and then we'll go to Michael Malio.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thanks. Oh, first off, Gina, you're doing a fantastic job. Oh my God.
Thank you.
I almost spit out my beer at one point. I had to go off camera. To Justin Shore's comment, I think that's what I reacted to. I believe now that we're DNC approved, so to speak, we should be able to go down to the D trip, that's the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee and the DSCC, and get that kind of questionnaire out to candidates for the 26th cycle. What happens is you will get more exposure. These guys that don't know, these candidates that don't know about the NIB resolution are going to learn real quick. So I think that serves a great purpose to get that out to, if you can get out to at least the federal level, and then maybe down to the state level, get that out to the questionnaire. I like that idea a lot.
Love it. Michael?
Yeah, thank you. I have a degree in philosophy, so I tend to think about the big picture of things. And I thought another arrow in the quiver of public banking that is local, counties, state, and national public banks is the argument of sovereignty. Sovereignty is a critical component to any representative government. Do they represent us? Who is the sovereign in these cases? Is it not the people? We are the sovereign and they are elected representatives of us. The first responsibility of any representative government is with the taxes that we pay to them. And we expect back in terms of services and provisions of sorts to help commerce, to provide infrastructure, to provide broadband, and many, many other things. So that money that we deposit or that we entrust with our governments in the form of taxes are the foundation of their sovereignty, of our sovereignty. When we forfeit that money to a private entity, we lose our political sovereignty at the city, at the county, and at the state levels.
Anyway, the judges must decide to leave, and we'll start tomorrow in the red paper chair.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear all that, but I'm done. So thank you.
Well, if you could identify yourselves, I
Oh,
get the
yeah, I
kudos for
will.
doing
I'm
so
sorry.
well, and then I forget to ask people to tell us
I'm
who they are.
speaking for myself. I'm speaking for myself, but I am currently serving as the communications director for the Public Banking Institute and the secretary for the Rocky Mountain Public Banking Institute, whose website I built, rmpbi.org. Check it out. rmpbi.org.
Thank you so much. Sometimes we all get it. We don't always speak for the groups that we're connected to, but it often helps for the rest of us to know where we come from and where we have those our comments. I see a Robert Cesario. Oh, we appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Bob Cesario. I'm the chair of the Phelps County Democratic Committee in Phelps County, Missouri. And I'm also the Missouri lead for Progressive Democrats of America. And I love the idea of having something about the NIB included in um, questionnaires that are sent out to potential representatives and senators and such. I'd like to mention that some of you know this, but PDA has a regular federal questionnaire that they send out to people that they are considering endorsing who wish to run for Congress. Since PDA has themselves endorsed the NIB now, I would suggest that you guys get in touch directly with Alan Minsky about perhaps including a question about the NIB on the questionnaire that goes out, along with their questionnaires about Medicare for all and the FDR's four freedoms and that sort of thing.
Love it. Thank you. We have gotten the the DNC has endorsed, as well as so many state Democratic parties. So let's take it to the next step. Susan Johnson, see you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for this wonderful, wonderful presentation from everyone. And thank you for your good work, Jeannie. I'm the state representative from Connecticut. I have proposed on several occasions to have a Connecticut public bank. I found that I've got a lot of resistance. I organized groups. I had a lot of people who were working on it with me, but I was the Commissioner of Banking did not care for it. Also, the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston stepped in and tried to stop it, and actually was quite successful at stopping me from doing this. So one of the things, I'm also a lawyer, and I've represented people in probate cases, and found that one, which I hadn't been aware of until I had a couple of cases, that one thing that it is really important is that if we lose all the small banks, now Connecticut has 3.5 million people. And if we lose all the small banks and all the Connecticut banks, then we're not going to have a say in oversight. So all the oversight will be gone because they're going to be governed then by the federal government. And trying to get them to respond to issues when you have a court order, and we've had court orders before, and they kind of go la-di-da. We don't have to worry about that. It's just we're federal. And and it really hurts because you have people who are trying to process a claim from Medicaid, and they might have their money in a bank that is governed nationally as opposed to statewide. I just didn't know if this information helps our cause here to get more public banking, because on the state level, because I think that would be something to bring, and I'm going to try and convince people again, come back with it again. But I just appreciate your work, and I'm hoping that we're going to be able to finally bring this together for people, because I think it's a really important way to keep money in the state, keep money in the country. So thank you so much for everything, and it's been great listening to everyone.
Oh, thank you so much, and for your service. And again, if you need help with having any kind of proposal drafted up that you can then bring to the state of Connecticut, I can put you right in touch with a couple of people on this call that'll send that right over.
Hey, well,
So,
maybe, sure, not to interrupt you, but maybe it'd be good to start with our Connecticut Democratic Party, and maybe that'd be the way to get the push. So I've been listening to you, and that might be, so let's chat afterwards.
Yes,
let's
be happy
do
to have that call.
Yeah, what you should know, Representative, is that the Bridgeport City Council did pass a resolution.
I saw that and I was thrilled, and I thought, oh, yes, let's get together with them. I was really pleased to see that as well. So maybe that would be the ticket to the Connecticut Democratic Party as well.
It is one of the amazing things with this whole resolution, the whole coalition, is that it helps big cities, it helps the little cities, it helps the in between the cities. There's no one that's being left out of getting the aid that we've all been so desperately needing. So that's why I see a couple others. We're probably getting close. I'm not sure if we have a time frame, but I see Andy and then Jim. And if you could just let us know why we know you're so smart.
Let me just make one comment. All the talk about infrastructure is critical, obviously, but what we haven't mentioned, which is really just as critical, is you can't get infrastructure without people to build it. They need to build all the materials. They need to, once you get the materials built, they need to build the building or the road or the school or the hospital or whatever it is. So this is really a jobs bill. and to focus it only on the objects, is to say, worry about bridges, worry about roads. That's fine. But let's worry about people who need jobs. We're complaining about the K-shaped economy, meaning that the bottom part of the population, or even more than just, about 2/3 of the bottom of the population is hurting for jobs and income. This is a jobs bill. This can increase employment by millions and millions of people. It can increase the growth rate of the GDP, which also would mean you'd have increased streams of income to government. If you have more income generated, you also are generating more taxes. So we need to expand the way we think about this from simply a building things to what is the impact of building things, which is on jobs, taxes, people's income. I'll shut up.
Andy, could you give us your brief title background?
I'm a macroeconomist. Been working with the NIB, doing lobbying with various people around the country. I was on the staff of the President's Council of Economic Advisors for a short while, Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, and finished up with a career in academia as vice provost and dean of faculty at Cal State Los Angeles.
Just a few little things,
Few little
Were
things
you
here and
working
there.
with Mariner Eccles at all in San Francisco?
No, I was more in Southern California.
Southern. Okay. I was just curious. Being in the Sun Valley, Idaho area, we used to joke that over 99% of the world's 1% of wealth is located in that community for a couple of different weeks out of the year. The airport is busier than O'Hare with private jet traffic only, and they've recently had to determine if you're not a billionaire, your jet doesn't stay there, it drops you off and then has to wait in Salt Lake because you're just not big enough.
Big
So
enough.
it's
Yeah.
kind of crazy, and we really need this kind of the infrastructure bill. You're so right. It is a jobs bill. It is putting people back to work because you can't import the guy that's going to smooth down the road.
Yeah, and
You
the key
can't.
thing is, the key thing is when you think infrastructure, you think about where the bridge is built or where the
Yeah.
building. But when you talk about the materials that are needed to make that infrastructure, that could be all over the country
Yep.
where you're building those
Yeah.
materials.
Yeah.
And so it's a much wider impact. And to your last point, it now looks like the richest 60,000 people have more income than the bottom 2/3, more wealth than the bottom 2/3 of the country.
Yeah, it's
Anyway.
just crazy. We need to fix that. I've got Jim and I've got someone else with a question, and that'll be our end. So, Jim Hanley from Tucson, if you could just tell us briefly yourself and your.
Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, I am a semi-retired private wealth manager here in Tucson. About 10 years ago, I helped to found Arizonans for a New Economy, which is a public banking advocate. We've had a couple of times shots at creating a state bank here. In August, we were able to get the Pima County Democratic Party. It's one of the larger Democratic Party organizations in Arizona to endorse the National Infrastructure Bank. And we're working on getting an endorsement from the state committee as well. And I just want to mention that, in the Arizona slide that Alfeca has, Arizona has a backlog of about $97 billion in infrastructure needs. And I don't remember the amount of jobs that is estimated to create. I think it's 320,000 jobs in Arizona that $97 billion would generate here. And I also want to point out that the Colorado River is drying up. The Lake Mead and Lake Powell, those two reservoirs are at about 33% capacity. And the estimate is that those reservoirs are not going to get filled up. And the NIB has a project, a blueprint to create an aqueduct from Louisiana that would replenish both of those reservoirs. It is amazing that we don't have congresspeople from from the 7 states that benefit from the Colorado River, including the electricity that's generated from Hoover Dam. Enormous amount of electricity goes to California from the Hoover Dam. And as those reservoirs fall, that generating capacity is going to go away. We've talked to the Water Authority here in Arizona. Our friend Luis De Leon is on that water authority. We can't get their attention, but that's the only solution there is for replenishing those 2 reservoirs that are so vital to 7 states in Arizona.
That's right.
I mean.
Yeah, I don't know if you were ever familiar with Jacques Fresco in Venus, Florida, that would always say, we don't need to have worry about rising sea if we'd have a solar desalination canal that could just bring us that water and bring it into where we need it. But I thank you so much. I've got my last speaker is Nelson Betancourt.
Yeah, thank you. This is my question. Let us say that the NIB bill is approved and funding begins to flow to states. When funding arrives in our county, Orange County, Florida, could it be used to capitalize a local public bank that could potentially leverage that money 10 times to fund more infrastructure, housing, water projects, etc.? Who could answer that question?
I'm going to throw that to Alfecca.
Okay, great question, Nelson. We see a lot of synergy happening between the financing that the National Infrastructure Bank will provide and state and local banks, and whether they're community banks or even mega banks branches in states or state public banks. We see a lot of synergy happening here. The NIB currently is sized to cover the infrastructure deficit. And when it does that, it will certainly grow the economy. It'll bring in new tax receipts into local coffers to help them pay back the loans. We can even see the bigger complementarity with state banks is they can act as a storefront for the NIB for a service fee. That would be even better than capitalizing them. But we see a lot of synergy going on. This is a lender of last resort. If I could summarize what I heard on this call, is a lot of legislators are saying at the municipal level, the state budget money is not getting to me. Federal budget money is not getting to me. If I go out into the private markets, I face, very high interest rate costs because they only want to do private equity or private P3 public-private partnership. That's a much higher cost for me. So where is the bonding market? It's just flat. It's not coming in and providing this money to cover this deficit that only the National Infrastructure Bank can cover. And it will really reboot the American economy in the process. That will help banks and help them to get formed and started as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
So the question is, can it be potentially leverage that money 10 times to fund more infrastructure?
Yes.
Can it be used potentially?
Yes. Short answer is yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
So
Okay.
I got to thank everyone for your time, your attention, your input on this. We've got 2 asks of this that we want to end the year with. We want all the sponsors we can possibly get for HR 5356. So if you've got someone that's not on our list, if you've got someone you think needs to hear about that, please get them this information or get us their name and we will help make that happen. You'll see we've got our sponsors there. There's about 50 so far. So we're really looking to get as many as we can by the time this comes in. And then we've got another, excuse me, we've got a little QR code that's going to pop up that's going to be doing a little bit of fundraising. Before we get to the $5 trillion, we need to make this happen. And one of the ways we make this happen is by visiting all of the places that we can to see that we can't get more states online, get more representatives signed on. So we've got plans for attending 4 state legislatures that are contiguous with the DC area trying to make as much impact as we can. So anything you can donate is so appreciated and helps get this done, which gets all of our communities back into where we need to be. And with that, I thank you so much for your time and your attention and wishing you the very best going into 2026. And we'll be seeing you again, and let's get this done.
Thanks and Happy New Year, all.
Happy New Year.
Happy
Keep
New
healthy.
Year.
Happy New Year. Great job,
Happy
Jeannie.
New Year,
Happy New Year.
everyone.
Best wishes all.